The Bible is the original divine comedy, composed of 1,000 tragic stories. There are almost no happy families in the Bible. The first son kills his brother. Judah, the son of Israel, decides the only thing wrong with murder is that there's no money in it. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus seem to be the exception to the rule. We know nothing of their parents. What we do know is that all three of them loved each other deeply, and Jesus loved them. Jesus may be God's own son, but even he got to pick his friends, and he picked them. Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were full of love for each other and others. When Jesus was in the neighborhood, he stayed with them. Martha was the perfect hostess who always had room for Jesus and at least a dozen of his guests. Mary listened to his every word. I'm avoiding now. I'm supposed to talk about Lori. She was a little girl. Everyone wanted to spell her name L-A-U-R-I-E. And she said, no, L-O-R-I. She did. It's easier for me to talk about Martha, Mary, and Lazarus than it is for me to talk about Ruth, Paul, and Lori. Because my heart is broken. And I'm angry. I know some of you are too. I know some of you don't want to admit it. Don't avoid it. Integrate it. Ruth, Paul, and Lori are not Martha, Mary, and Lazarus. But you know Lori's hospitality, her generosity, her passionate nature, her and our Paul's immense ability to practice the biblical virtue of hospitality. Lori was part Martha and Mary both. As her older brother, by only 16 months, I've known Lori all her life. She was exactly then who you knew her to be now, just less so. A couple of days ago, I was driving with my mother in the car, and I was telling her about an article about genetics, about how this scientist had said, as we grow older, our genetics take better hold, and we differentiate. When we're young, we're kind of all the same, and as we grow older, we get more different. And my mother said, yeah, that's what I've always known. When we get older, we get more so. Lori was an interesting combination of goodness, stability, and passion. But again, in her childhood, only less so. Mom noted she was the perfect child, unlike her two older siblings. I was more mischievous, and Lori had that in her, as you well know. Ruth was more expressive and defiant. But Lori was good and dutiful. She's always been competitive, so as the youngest child, she had a disadvantage, so she cheated. And her youngest child used to cheat too. And when caught by her grandfather, she explained to him, I like to cheat. It helps me win. As Lori's roommates, whose name I will not mention here, as they know, she often talked in her sleep. And we, as her siblings, would sometimes come into the bedroom and egg her on. Muffins on my legs. She was bold and frank, but once declined an invitation from one young suitor after a basketball game by declaring, I have to go home and eat grapefruit. Food was her real love. I imagine that almost everyone who knew her loved her. There was little to not love about her, even in her less so years. I'm still avoiding, though, because I'm still heartbroken and angry. As some of you already know, this exceptionally happy family in the Bible had their happiness pierced by death. Lazarus took ill, and the sister sent word to Jesus to hurry back to heal his friend as he had healed thousands of others. But the Gospel of John is quite clear that Jesus intentionally tarried so that he would not be there to heal and prevent the death and grief of his friends. He said this was for the sake of his friends. Just like Lori spurned the desires of that young suitor, Jesus keeps his own counsel. And to be his friend is to live with that reality and to trust him anyway. When Mary reached the place where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet and said, "Lord, if you had only been here, my brother would not have died." When Jesus saw her weeping, John says he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Now, deeply moved in spirit and troubled in English is too tame a translation for the Greek, in my opinion. Deeply moved is almost a euphemism for the severe anger of someone ready to rebuke another. And the English troubled covers the word meaning thrashing back and forth. Since Lori has died, I too have been deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Jesus was angry. He wasn't angry at his Father. The Father didn't give us death. We were offered the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and the only one we were told not to eat was the one we ate from. The Son of God, who made the world, then asked, "Where have you laid him?" Just like earlier his Father asked the first man and woman, "Where are you hiding?" "Come and see, Lord," his friends and mourners replied. Then Jesus wept. Again, I take issue with two timid translators. This is an angry, grief-filled bawling used to describe his emotional response in the Gospel of Luke's Jerusalem recapitulation of that first tree-born rebellion and the death and destruction it will bring. This isn't, "Could you please pass the tissues?" weeping. This is sorrowful and angry, whole body mourning. Then the mourners said, "See how he loved him." But some of them said, "Could not he who opened the eyes of the blind have kept this man from dying?" I know this question lingers with some of you. Jesus, of course, commanded Lazarus from the tomb, and Lazarus obediently arises. This miracle will ironically bring on Jesus' own murder. I am not anticipating a reoccurrence of this miracle today. Although I desperately want it. As I said, I am filled with anger and a broken heart. Lori should not be dead, and I am angry. I am angry that her husband, children, family, and friends are robbed of her by death. I am angry that her students and colleagues are robbed of her by death. This is not the way it's supposed to be. There is nothing in this passage or in the Bible that says that anger is what we shouldn't be feeling now. Death is a thief that robs this world of even the precious, happy exceptions to our tragic lives that we may briefly enjoy. It is well within our rights as image bearers of God to rebuke and denounce death as the thief that it is. I will begin by saying, however, that the Bible is a comedy filled with tragedy. It is the original comedy in that it does have a happy ending. Even though I cannot see it now, I am promised that my dear sister, who does not belong in the grave, did not labor in vain. If I didn't know that before, I sure learned that in the visitation last night. She created community and touched many lives. She didn't labor in vain as the auntie who brought the candy box camping, or the friend who hosted the meal, or the teacher who passionately inspired her students to excellence, or the wife and mother who fervently loved her family. She labored all too briefly, but not in vain. Today is her birthday. So we will have a strange birthday celebration. We can be angry that this thief, death, robbed us of something so happy, so precious, so beautiful, something that brought so much joy. We can be hopeful, though, because Jesus is strong and won't leave his friends in the grave. To the best of my knowledge, she will not be called forth from her grave today, but that day is coming. I believe in the resurrection. I believe in the resurrection, her happiness will follow her. I believe in the resurrection, I will see her again, and that day is coming soon.